This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's take line number one. And Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, good.
I should have answered. I should have answered. I'm fine, thanks.
That's fine. That's fine. You're. How's the new gig? Treating you all right?
There's an old comedy show. I can't remember which show it is, but it says it treats me, it beats me, and leaves me for dead. But I'm kidding. Still getting to see legs. I'm, appreciating all the patience. You're not going to, 16 years, big run for the last guy. So I'm getting there. I think I can get there. And everybody's been great. So I really appreciate all the support and all the kind words. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Thanks for asking.
Sounds positive overall.
Absolutely.
So it's a big day for energy nerds. I know the report is pretty big and technical, but it's probably worth taking the time to read for those that can suffer through it, and for those that can't, I guess that's what we're for.
Absolutely. And as big reports go, it's pretty easy for us to kind of turn a blind eye and just let it sit and let the experts work on it. But this one really concerns everybody. This one is a little bit more, in everyone's best interest, and, behooves kind of everyone to have a look at it. At least, give it a glance, try to form your own opinion instead of just listening to all the noise. And hopefully the political side of it will filter out. We will be weeded out, and we'll just get down to the crux of what's best for all of us. And
that's kind of what I really like this report. I've been critical of the previous MOU for some time, and I like, maybe 80% of what I see in this report. It's got great content. There are perhaps some fair concerns from opposition about the process and, when the panelists or if they will answer any questions, those are fair concerns. But the content of the report itself is I think, quite good. And even as a person that really watches kind of this event, I learned, some pretty terrible things about the project that I didn't even know. So the big one that kind of jumped out at me, and I'm going to read from the report. This is on page 22. I'm not going to read much because, again, it's obviously boring. But the line is, there is an additional risk to the shareholders of the Gull Island joint venture because approximately 23% of the construction cost and any cost overruns on a nominal basis will need to be recovered by a subsequent PPA after 2085, when NL Hydro may be purchasing a larger percentage of Gull Island capacity. And so that, I had no idea that the debt structure worked this way, but even though Gull Island might be built in the 2030s, it won't even be paid off by 2085.
Oh, continue. I'm not going to interrupt. You have it right there. I did enough talking off the top. But yes, that's a startler. It puts it into perspective. It's kind of why I said off the top, we really all need to have a quick glance through it. I would love to read the whole report here, but that's a big one as well. It puts it into perspective of where the outlying, what can I use for it? The bookends of it, right? From now till then. And whether or not 50 years was the right thing with a 2% escalator clause, or whether or not we should have been looking farther out, and whether or not, what kind of debt would still be in existence at that time,
Yeah, and the report, they do, I think it's pretty fair. They say, going into 2041, we get a better deal than we would have before. But and in spite of all the cash being quite backloaded, or most of it being quite backloaded, so is the risk, and most of it revolves around Gull Island. And so, the reason that this is like a, however many billions you choose to describe it as, is a many billions of dollar project. The fact that Gull Island doesn't get paid off comes from the bundling of the Upper Churchill and Gull Island altogether. And so while a lot of people are very happy that we're going to be not selling power, at an incredibly steep discount, maybe Quebec should be paying 6, 7, 8 cents for the power from Churchill Falls, and they're paying 0.2. So the MOU gets us an extra 6 cents for those gigawatts, and that's obviously good. But for Gull Island, that's going to be new power, and that new power is going to cost. I think the documents I've seen from Quebec say it's going to be between 10 and 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Then you'll have overruns on top of that. So for the amount that we're collecting from Quebec on the sales, we don't even collect enough to pay off the cost to build Gull Island until sometime in the 2060s. And so in a sense, we're selling the Gull Island power at a dramatic loss because it's bundled with the Churchill Falls power. Really, and like I knew it was bundled and that the bundling was bad. The report really does help spell out one of the major risks that we are exposed to just from the financing structure. Maybe parts of the deals, maybe the project itself could be saved, but the financing structure alone is just really, really brutal.
And that is precisely, I think, Chris, why I've alluded to, and I think why the feds recognize the importance of inserting themselves into this. As I said off the top, the calculations right now may not be the calculations once we find out. And again, they're using very carefully. The Prime Minister yesterday, I think he used the words that Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec are principally the partners here. But as he has well said, we're looking at potential project of national importance, potential energy corridors, trying to get past that hump of not being able to flow through Quebec. What kind of, bartering and trading and discussions are there, and the financials are all the big issue, as you said. I mean, you've called about the financials. This is exactly where, if the feds get involved, those numbers can change dramatically pretty quickly. And the question is, to what point, do they, three of them, sit down and discuss how they're going to do this? That's why I think it was important not to have a full reset, or not to throw it out, but at least just to reset. And maybe they need to go back through the columns and check the numbers and just make it more. Look, the more economically viable it comes, the less it reduces the debt. And obviously, it's all about the money, how much that's going to be spent, and how much, because that's all the report is. It's all based on the cost of this and whether or not we're going to get a raw deal again or a better deal.
Well, and so the report, and then Tony in the press conference after does kind of try and make a distinction between the financial impact of exporting power, so we can sell it and get a buck, or we can turn that power inward into the province and. Now, this is the part of the report I don't like. This is kind of the 20% or so. Okay. Is that they say, mining in Labrador, they take a little bit of time to talk about AI data centers. They talk about transmission through Quebec to sell to, Ontario or the States, which is, Ontario is an exporter. I don't know about all the transmission stuff. It's... And so...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and so my hope is that when we start talking about transmission, rather than looking for federal help in changing Quebec's laws, which I don't think is very likely, we have a much more in-depth look at delivering that incredibly cheap power in North America to our residents. And, will we have enough left over for mines and for data centers? Absolutely. There's a lot of power that's moving around up there. And, our best negotiation tool is to describe how we can use the power inside of Newfoundland and Labrador without needing outside help from the states or from the Fed.
And, reducing our reliance, improving our own infrastructure and our own grid, shoring it up, making sure that we're looked after. All great, all important. I mean, Labrador does hold the key. They have to electrify it, as the Premier said they will. And, the line, the proponents are looking at, taking care of the line itself. We just have to provide the generation. Chris, only because I'm right at the bottom, do you want a sec to wrap up there? I appreciate the call, but I got a few more waiting there, so go for it.
No, I'm going to probably reread the report again, call in next week, and I hope everyone has a good one.
No, I really appreciate the call. Thanks for weighing in on it. We need more people to just have a tertiary look, form an opinion, and let us know how you feel about it. I think there's an assumption in government maybe it's too high level maybe for the average person, and maybe the referendum is our way. But anyway, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
No problem. Appreciate the time. Have a good one.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Right to line number 3. And Greg Nosworthy, Ward 3 Councillor in the City of St. John's. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Midweek hump, the early midweek hump, eh?
There we go.
I don't know if it's for everybody, but anyone who has the 4-day week, you're all right.
Hey, I agree with that, absolutely. Brian, listen, I wanted to chat. I know we got a couple of things going on with the MOU, and a lot of folks are paying attention to that, but I did want to just bring up something at a local level. We had, yesterday we had a debate around a demolition order for number 206 Mundy Pond Road. And this is a property that's been, unfortunately, a bit of a state of disrepair, rather dilapidated over the last couple of years. And I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that I was able to introduce a motion yesterday, and we voted on it unanimously to issue a demolition order. Ultimately not something we want to have to do, of course, when we're dealing with a piece of property and a former home for a family, but something that was necessary in this case.
Is this the one, just to be clear for our listeners, one right next to St. Teresa's?
Just up the road from me, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, my daughter went to school there for a few years for her elementary days, and it was a problem then, still a problem today, and glad to see the city's taking some action on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's hard at times when we're dealing with houses and properties that are wrapped up in legal battles, and this one, I just want to bring some clarity to why it took so long. It formed part of an estate, and I say this as a lawyer and someone that's dealt with many estates in the past and present. It's one of those things where you have to be cautious and careful when you're dealing with someone else's property that is being transferred onto somebody else. There's a lot of legal risk, a lot of legal liability, and at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, of course. Ultimately, with the most recent fire, this house got to that point of this is too much of a safety hazard for the broader community, so it's got to go. And thankfully, we were able to push and pass that order yesterday.
Yeah, I'm just wondering so there was somebody living there. What is the status of, people will wonder, well, what's the status of that person, if it's not too personal a question?
Yeah, I don't want to obviously speak for someone's private matters like that, but what I will say is that staff work in these situations from time to time, and we are going to make sure that staff are checking out the area now and until the ultimate demolition, and we will offer supports where we can. Obviously, we are a little bit limited at a municipal level. It's the province that provides housing and those types of things, but we do have staff who are trained, who know the resources available, whether it's transitional housing or if it's supportive housing or if it's helping find an apartment. Our staff are really diligent with those types of things. We have a housing department, so hopefully that this won't be too big of a burden. But ultimately, even for the people that might call that home, it's unsafe for them as well.
Yeah, and it's not just as simple as just saying, okay, that's in hard shape, it's got to come down. There is a process, as you mentioned, and there will be a trial, of course, but I suspect, I'm not going to prejudge what will happen there, but it has to go through that process in order to get to the final conclusion. Greg, yeah, so there's lots, and don't worry about the MOU. There will be plenty of chat about that. It's great to have a variety of topics, and this is an important one. You had the Happy City forum last week in Cowan Heights. How'd it go?
It was great. We had a fantastic turnout. It was good to see the community come out. This is something that's really important to me is to be able to have these kind of traditional style town halls, keep myself accessible. I know Councillor Davis just had his. We've got a few more of those coming up, so it's great to see. There's nothing better in civic engagement. Lots of good discussions, lots of frank discussions, some tough ones, of course. But for me, it was great to just be in that room, field those questions, have those discussions on an open floor for everybody to hear, and then afterwards had a few side chats with folks too, which is always so great.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to throw a couple of small curveballs if you don't mind. Nothing out of sort, but first of all, it's almost June. And the landmark sign for the city, the St. John's, the big sign over the hullabaloo last year, is still sitting in storage. When will the city address this?
Still looking at options, truthfully. Again, we were talking about this last time, which I appreciate. It's a big sign, and we want to make sure that wherever it's going, whatever that looks like, it makes sense for the community. We got to have that engagement. That's something that was very clear when it came before us last year, and we want to make sure we're doing right by people. So still more to come on that. Now, of course, a lot of our big events like our Canada Games are gone there, and to the wayside, the Briar's come and gone. So, we can kind of zero in on some more of these issues, but stay tuned, more to come.
Yeah, so there's no date or anything that the citizens or residents of the city who are interested in this and curious about it. There's no particular next date or a time that they can expect to hear it come onto the agenda or a decision or anything like that?
No, and I don't know that that's the right thing, because again, when we're talking about engagement and we want to make sure we're doing it right, I think we rushed it a little bit too much last time. So taking the additional time now is really one of those lessons that was learned. So we just want to make sure we are taking that necessary time. And I know it's a curiosity, that's for sure, but want to make sure we're doing right by the community.
And any, I don't mean to start a rumor mill, but what's going on with the Dominion at Kitty Vitty?
I unfortunately I don't have anything more there. Yeah. Sad to see it go. I grew up there. I remember going to games with my father, and then of course once it converted to the grocery store, saw what that meant for the community, and unfortunately it's sitting there right now. So I'm hopeful something soon, but don't have any update on that one. And
last one, I know this isn't exclusive to any one ward. Unfortunately, it's widespread. The people who are finding needles now that the winter thaw and that sort of thing. It's a daily concern. Look, there are daily posts about very few other things regularly than this. And the startling nature of it when you do, whether it's found on the site of a daycare or just walking down the street, and not necessarily downtown, but in any neighborhood. I know you're getting those reports too. Is there much coming into 311, and are they able to help and respond timely as they need to?
Staff are doing a great job responding to it. I have to tip my hat to them. It's not an easy job, and it's not something that someone wants to have to do as part of their work. So first and foremost, I just had to tip my hat to them, and so thankful for that they do. And you're right, it is almost daily. In fact, I was chatting with someone just this morning on some needles that they found. So it is something that is coming up. The reality is this is a poverty issue. It's a social issue. It's a housing issue. When we don't have adequate housing, when we don't have adequate employment opportunities, income streams, when we don't have this necessary care in the province, what do you expect is going to happen? So I'm really hopeful that we're going to see more from the province here in addressing this, because, again, I've said this time and time again, we didn't get into this problem overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight, but we do need to proactively work here, and we want to see more to come from the province. Again, that's social supports, that's housing, reliable income. When people have food in their belly, a place to rest their head, they're in a much better position, so they don't have to turn to these unfortunate situations.
Absolutely. It's a myriad of issues, Greg, I'd love to bring up with you, and any councillor really, whether it's as we close in on the Ped Mall or just in general, scooters and e-bikes and the risks they pose. That's going to be a topic the next time we talk, okay?
Listen, always a pleasure. Always happy to do it. You know where to get me, and I'm always happy to be on the show.
Absolutely. You're always open and accessible and available, so we really appreciate it here on the show. Thanks again for your time today.
Likewise. Take care. Cheers.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Well, let's go to line number 2 and more MOU talk with Charlie. Charlie, you're on the air.
Yes. Good morning, Brian.
How are you?
Congratulations congratulations on your new post, and keep up the good energy.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Charlie. I'll do my best.
Okay, I'd like to just mention briefly 3 little items on gardening. A gardening tip. Those who don't have probably a lot of land, if you get your beet out early, you could start them in a greenhouse if you have them, or under a grow light. If you get them out, say in May, you can harvest them in July, and you can put carrots in the same bed and get carrots close to being fully grown, especially if you get the short season variety.
Great tip.
So just a tip on that. The other one was on the Iran thing. I noticed I've been predicting cyber warfare. I noticed there was an article about interfering with the gas pumps in the States, and I think that's a shot across the bow to the States that they'd better watch out, because they can, if they can do gas pumps, they can do a lot of other damage as well. And the third item was a guy came out, one of the main guys, I forget his name just now, but he said he feels that AI will become conscious in the very near future. And if you get AI becoming conscious, you know what the implication of that is, when they can plan and think on their own and so on. So just thought I'd mention those 3 items, okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Charlie. Every time I go, my head goes to AI and the risks and the dangers and the fact that we are just playing catch-up. I always think of the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, you know? The old movie where they had the Whopper computer that just decided to get conscious and take on a life of its own and almost cause World War III without, look, it was well ahead of our time back in the early 80s, but by the same token, it wasn't far off. We ignore this at our peril. The experts, the grandfather of AI, no one denies that is a risk and how we have to watch it and keep an eye on it. But there's dark corners of this world where they are way ahead of what we're worried about. So.
Well, they've already shown that they're capable of blackmail, of cheating and lying. But anyway, the tech people are more interested. They start off saying about helping humanity, same as the Facebook thing, but they end up being unregulated and just a contest to see who can get there fastest and how much money they can make on it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I don't know if you're familiar with... there's a CNN special on Kara Swisher Wants to Live Forever. Have you seen that?
I've caught some of those episodes, yeah. Go ahead. Yep. I've on the first one I saw, she's in the tanning bed, but other than that, go for it.
Yeah. Well, she's to me, the conversation, I'm into the third one, the conversation has been really, really great, especially if you think about death and living to any great degree. For example, she had a guy on, Dr. Shelton Solomon, on human awareness, and he said awareness gives us 2 emotions, dread and awe. And the dread would be of dying, of course. But if you're into awe, looking at nature and gardening ties in here, and beautiful sunsets and icebergs, that's the antidote to dread. Just be in awe of this creation around us and be appreciative of it. But he also said that people scared of death, and I thought this was counterintuitive, people scared of death and people older become more selfish and acquisitive. I thought they'd be more compassionate and kind, but he said, no, it doesn't work out like that. So that explains all those white guys in Florida that are all Trumpers. He said they look to autocrats and they hate and dislike people who are different. So I thought that was a little bit of a revelation. Anyway, I'd highly recommend that series.
Yeah. No, I've got some episodes, but I'm sticking to the hard news these days because I have so little time for anything else. I mean, those docs are incredible, but I'm flicking around, and especially if there's any NHL or playoffs on the other side of it, I'm completely distracted by that.
Yeah. A sense of awe, that's I found that myself, especially when you look at the night sky sometimes. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
On the MOU,
sure.
I don't know enough about it, their findings to comment on that in any detailed fashion. But I've noticed this. the critics of Muskrat Falls, Dave Vardy, Des Sullivan, and others, they were the ones that came out and said the MOU wasn't in the public interest, and they were dead set against it. And what these guys are saying in this latest report backs up what these other guys, these Muskrat guys, I'll call them, were saying. So I place a lot of value in what Dave Vardy and Des Sullivan and some of the others came out with. So I think that the fact that the two groups have common ground, have met in the middle there, or at least agreed, I think that's significant. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not.
Absolutely, Charlie. And of course, you're not the only one who hasn't been able to fully digest not just the reading of it, but the actual calculations, the pros, the cons, and all the opinion that's been offered. I still say it would have been helpful to have the members of the panel there yesterday to answer some of these questions. They had a technical briefing. Who would have been better to be at that technical briefing, even if they didn't want to go before the media? To have them present to answer the questions for media on background, which is what technical briefings are, where we don't actually, you can't quote the people. It's usually deputy ministers and experts in the department or consultants or whoever they may be. And on top of that, it just throws an unnecessary shadow and cloud of uncertainty or questions. If nothing else, some doubt in people's minds, maybe a bit of trust, because, your word is your word. And when you say they'll be here and they don't, that's a hit to the government, and there's probably a really good explanation as to why they weren't there yesterday, which would be lovely to hear. I don't know what the disadvantage is in telling us why, unless, of course, they just didn't want to, have to answer questions to it, and they weren't standing behind their own report, which obviously is not the case. Again, it's just those kind of questions. And regarding, as you said, the numbers, and it's a pretty technically heavy report. I did have an email there, and I do know, we all know that these ChatGPT and other Google AI and those sorts of things are, available, where you can just Google it up and say, tell me about the report that was released yesterday specifically, and it'll give you a pretty good overview. Now, I'm just passing that on because it is a fact, and I got a couple of emails saying that I should direct listeners to that. I would just caution that, this is an AI-generated feature, and some of it can get lost in, translation. And for the most part, it's accurate. But, you really want if you want to dig into the first-hand account, then the report is your go-to. But, that is there if helpful. It's a helpful overview, and you can, pare down through it if people haven't done it before and haven't used that option. I try to avoid it, and I also, continue to ask the provincial government to what extent they, on the record, officially, use AI in everyday government business. We know there have been problems with reports, such as the education one last year under the previous government, but these things can happen all the time, and AI being the important conversation, as you noted right off the top, in all of our lives right now. It's just unavoidable in no matter what you do. Being such a critical issue right now, I think it's worth knowing to what extent the provincial government, any department, is either using it, experimenting with it, using it for calculations, whether it be for road work, whether it doesn't matter. Across the board, I'd like a clear understanding of how much we use it and how reliable it really is.
Brian, on your point as far as these people coming in, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if the terms of reference, I don't know if at the beginning they thought about requiring that of them, but the fact that they can just say no, they have the power. The PC government has the power of the purse. Perhaps they could say, look, we might have to delay your. I think they should try to be more persuasive and forceful in having these people come before the House of Assembly or come on the radio or whatever. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. There's something really strange about that. Those guys got the inside look who they spoke to and all that, and they're not saying a word. I mean, come on. Anyway.
Yeah, there is a story there. There's an explanation, because you never want the Premier to look like he isn't in the know or has to change his mind or change tact or direction along the way. It's not a good look for any government, especially on an issue this important to the province. So when that kind of happens, it unfortunately is a distraction, but an important communication issue. And, when we look at the important, point of this report, you have to wonder what happened behind the scenes. Was there an agreement ahead of time? Yes, they will be there. And if not, no, then they will be there. You would have known that was worked out one way or the other. At some point, when the Premier went before the media in the lobby of the East Block of Federation Building and said that they should and would be here yesterday, and then that changed, then I want to know, and the public deserves to know what changed, because these were the authors of what we're all talking about today. And not only that, they used people to help put together this report, and we don't know who they were either. So we can't talk to the authors, and we don't know who helped them. That's a problem.
Well, he obviously thought they were coming on to have that 2-week delay, and it seems like they just said, we don't want to do that, and that was the end of the story. And I don't think it should be the end of the story.
I agree.
Like I said, they're getting paid. I'm not quite sure what the figures are there, but they're getting paid a huge sum of money, and if they can't back up and tell us more about what they found and why they came to certain conclusions, what does that tell us? Anyway, we'll leave it at that, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. It's just the unknown, and leaves it hanging out there. And I should say, I've mentioned other premiers we'd love to hear from. Of course, this would be a good day for Premier Wakeham to come on the program. And I know he had the announcement yesterday, and he's done some media, but he's welcome here right on Open Line to answer some of these questions. I would welcome his call. Charlie, thanks for the call.
Okay, sir. Thanks very much.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
And let's go right to line number 4. And St. John's lawyer and former PC leader, provincial PC leader, Ches Crosby, you're on the air.
Well, thank you, Brian. I just want to say before I get to my main remark is I had the pleasure on occasion of conversations with your predecessor, Paddy Daly. I knew your father, and I know you somewhat, and I'm sure you'll carry on in the tradition of Open Line being the voice of the people with great distinction.
Well, I appreciate it, and I am absolutely doing my best, and I'm sure the old man is watching, and I hope he's happy.
I'm sure he is. And I also, just to put my cards on the table, I'm the last outgoing leader before the interim leader, Dave Brazel, prior to Tony Wakeham taking over the leadership of the opposition and of the PC party and becoming premier. So that's my party affiliation. Mm-hmm. But I'm also a deep Newfoundlander and Labradorian with deep roots in this province and a deep love and affection for it. And so my ultimate loyalty is to the interests of her people.
Sure, and a signatory, may I add, to that letter last, I think it was in August, that was drafted yourself, Tanya Williams, Rolly Martin, former Hydro Director, Jack Harris, Roger Simmons, former MP, all, very concerned about the former MOU. So there must be some level of relief. What's the best word, Ches?
Relief is a good word. Optimism is another word, because, of course, we close one chapter, which is a sort of a look back on the MOU deal, but we now have another chapter to open and write, which is the extent to which we can right the wrongs of the original Churchill River deal. And that's really why I'm calling. I want to congratulate Tony Wakeham, the Premier, on his cautious and methodical leadership style and that of the government. They won't be interfering in the negotiations, the renewed negotiations, like the review panel found the last government had done, potentially costing the people of the province billions of dollars. That's a finding in the report. I'm sure that Premier Wakeham will let those charged with the mandate and responsibilities carry it out without undue interference. The other thing I want to draw your listeners' attention to here is a very, very important thing, which is that the Wakeham government has defined that the principle to govern the renewed negotiations and any other dealings over the tremendous wealth and resources of the Churchill River is the principal beneficiary standard. That was not the standard, and the panel found this. That was not the standard that was used in the last negotiation, and it was not the standard that was defined for the negotiation by the last outgoing government. It was a different standard. It was basically to get the best deal you could and maximize the value, and that's not the same thing as being the principal beneficiary. And they went further and said that on some aspects of this deal, the MOU deal, Quebec ended up being the principal beneficiary. So I'll just pause there in case you have any questions.
No, I take your point, and I've heard that mentioned to me yesterday, that nuance, if you will, and the fact that, the power, and, again, I went through the report that Quebec would have a distinct advantage over control of the power on that side of the border. I wonder, in my own terms, does the government not, the report is one thing, but I have to ask your opinion on, the no-show of the expert panel, and does that lessen the value or the credibility or any of that when the Premier said they would be there? I know it seems like a sidebar to this, but, it's we're trying to, if you're trying to get the public on board and the trust, especially if we are going to have a referendum, that matters.
Yes, well, here we're getting to the point that the government has chosen the right principle. The resources of the Churchill River have to be developed in the interest or the best interest of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. In other words, in accordance with the principal beneficiary standard that sees us get the most out of it. So that's been recognized. But it was not recognized by the last government, and it is not contained in the substance of the MOU deal. But we now have a new principle for the negotiations. So the government of this province has big forces arrayed against it. I don't think that the Carney government, although you can still be optimistic about it, is going to be our friend in this. They're going to go with where most of the votes go. Mr. Carney's principal civil service advisor, Sabia, was CEO of Quebec Hydro until less than a year ago. All the sympathies and the inclinations are going to be to favor Quebec, not us as principal beneficiary.
Yeah, and on Mr. Sabia, I mean, I was at the news.
We need credibility for this process. That was the point I'm getting to.
Sorry.
And the fact that the review panel wouldn't appear and answer questions doesn't help credibility.
Yeah, how would you have handled that? And what like, no explanation either yet? I mean, I think there needs to be some. It's still a gaping hole there for me. And I was just going to say, Mr. Sabia with Hydro-Quebec, when he was here, the news conference, I believe it was down at the Alt Hotel that I attended. Again, kind of threw us all for a loop. The little things that happen in the run of, of all of this in the background. He then, the following week, without, obviously they knew at the time, but the following week he jumped ship and ended up in the Prime Minister's office as his, at the top of the helm.
Leopards don't usually change their spots like that. He brings with him all the sympathies. He's deeply entrenched in the financial and corporate structure of the province of Quebec, and he hasn't left all that behind him. And in fact, Carney has him there because of all those contacts and all the power base that he has in Quebec. And Quebec is important to the federal government. We're not so much. So there is that problem. But the credibility problem you were putting your finger on. It would have been better if the panel had appeared and explained their findings. Absolutely. All the more so because Mr. VOCM has in the past promised a referendum on this. So there's an educational component for the Newfoundland voters to make sure and use every opportunity to ensure that they have adequate means of educating themselves on why things are being done. Is it too late for that? No, maybe not. I'm not on the inside. I don't know what reasons were given for them not appearing, but it is unfortunate. Maybe it can still be redressed. But you're going to have to ask someone inside the government as to why they didn't appear, because I have no direct knowledge. Can I introduce another credibility issue here?
You may, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, and this one is more important, and it has to do with Jennifer Williams, the CEO of Newfoundland Labrador Hydro. Now, Mr. Wakeham, and I have great respect for his management style and leadership style. I already said that. And I have great respect with the principles he's laid down through the terms of reference endorsed by the panel, and which he again repeated the principal beneficiary standard in his remarks during the press conference. So he's on board with all that, and I think any committed Newfoundlander and Labradorian has to back him in that. However, Jennifer Williams was on the last negotiating team, and there the standard was not, and the outcome was not that we ended up being the principal beneficiary, we here in Newfoundland and Labrador. No, Quebec ended up in that status. Now this no doubt very capable person is being asked to switch hats or change spots and negotiate from a completely different principle. There is going to be skepticism caused by that and a credibility gap created.
Okay.
I'll let you. You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's why I mentioned it off the top. It kind of was a head scratcher for me, only in the sense of when you consider the conclusion by the expert panel that there was overreach, that the government, meddled, if you will, into the negotiations and didn't give the board of hydro its proper, say, autonomy to be able to negotiate this properly. And then apparently, we're talking about the clause now, the escalator clause, and the 50-year term of the agreement. Those two factors that came out of that, apparently, and against, from what we understand, the wishes of the board, of which Jennifer Williams was the chair and the CEO, and on the committee. And so one wonders if that was happening, where was that complaint or where was that issue? If that was actually happening, now we have Jennifer Williams who will be on the new committee. I mean, it has to be a question for her, as you said, change spots, but also just that issue of, that happened now. Now you're on the new, just did she speak up? Did she express that concern? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, whether she did or she didn't, she executed her mandate and instructions, and it did not end up with us being the principal beneficiary as found by this panel. That was not the end result. So the credibility gap that creates is by having her on the renewed negotiating team, how committed is she to that? And, the perception is the problem that it creates. And I have a suggestion. I don't talk to Mr. Wakeham directly. I don't have, I'm not there in the inner councils of the government, but I'll make it publicly here. And that is that the panel did recommend a limited amount of unbundling of what's in the MOU, and that was the Upper Churchill products, projects, to squeeze more power out of the existing power plant. I'll just put it in those terms. That's smaller, but it's still a great value to this province. And what they said was it's something that Hydro itself, CFLCO, which we're two-thirds owners of, could negotiate as part of its corporate tasks and maximizing the long-term value of its capital assets. That strikes me, and I'm making this suggestion, as being an appropriate assignment for Jennifer Williams, who's the CEO of Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, with her institutional knowledge, and that she be asked to consult to the new negotiating team. But whether she belongs there as a partner in the negotiation effort, even with oversight from another body yet to be created, may be creating a perceptional problem and what I just call the credibility gap. That gap could be addressed if she were assigned just to those Upper Churchill issues and used as a resource, as a consultant to the negotiating team, which is being tasked, of course, to come up with a deal that favors us more than it favors Quebec, which didn't happen last time.
I just wanted to ask, we were talking about Jennifer Williams there. You mentioned the concerns with her on the negotiating committee now, but obviously her knowledge and expertise will certainly, come as an asset, whether, the other concerns that you have. Do you feel that way about Jerome Kennedy, is my question. I mean, you know that from your legal expertise, when you're in a court, whether civil or a criminal trial, that, when you're trying to declare someone as an expert, it's not a simple thing. There's quite a test that goes before the judge before anyone is accepted as an expert. Would Mr. Kennedy be accepted as an expert in hydroelectricity if you were in litigation?
Brian, I'm going to answer that question as best I can about Jerome Kennedy, but I just want to be clear on what I said earlier about Jennifer Williams and her role. And Mr. Wakeham, she also intervened during the lead up to the election campaign a year ago or last year, and she did so even during the campaign by coming on this very show, Open Line, and defending the MOU as the best deal available. Now, Mr. Wakeham said he's had long conversations with her, and he's obviously made up his mind that he retains confidence in her because he's reappointing her to be on the negotiating team. And no doubt that has advantages because of her extensive institutional knowledge. But I don't question Mr. Wakeham's judgment on that he has confidence in her. That's for him to decide. The problem is that there are sections of the voting public in Newfoundland and Labrador, in the context where a referendum may well happen, who don't have that confidence, and it creates a perceptual problem. So in order to address that, Mr. Wakeham might well consider having her present for the negotiation as a consultant, but assigning the Churchill Falls upgrades and Churchill Falls expansion projects to be negotiated separately by her, separate from the main MOU. I hope that's clear. And I'm not questioning Mr. Wakeham's judgment here. It's just that it's creating, I think, a potential perception problem out in the public, and as well on the side of the negotiators for Quebec, because they're going to wonder what really is the mandate.
Yeah, absolutely. And the optics matter, as you said, just going back to even the fact that this, a little bit wishy-washy on the referendum question yesterday, when he was asked several times, he just would not come out and say, yes, there will be a referendum. Don't know why that was so difficult, but instead just saying we need a deal. We need a deal. Well, we know that. So yeah, the optics of it and the public perception is very important because it will, so we understand, eventually go to the public. But Mr. Kennedy, just going back to the question, would you consider...
Yeah, I will, but before you get... I will address that.
Okay.
We need a deal, but time is on our side. It's not on Quebec Hydro's side when it comes to the Upper Churchill in particular. Time is on our side. Now, as to Mr. Kennedy, you asked me, does he have the qualifications essentially to be on this negotiating team? And I would add a resounding yes to that. I know Mr. Kennedy pretty well. I've known him as a lawyer. I've known him in extracurricular capacities. And Jerome Kennedy is very astute. He's got lots of experience in government. I have no doubt that he's going to apply his excellent legal mind and his skill and knowledge derived from how government works and how politics works to the task at hand.
Does it detract or take anything away from his credibility that he was the Natural Resources Minister when Muskrat Falls was sanctioned?
Not at all.
Okay. Ches, look, I appreciate the time. Again, it's all about, as you said, just public perception and optics that matter here. So, but look, I can't thank you enough for adding your voice to this today. I really appreciate it. I've called out a couple of times. I'd love to hear from the Premier today just to clarify a few points, in the interests of openness and transparency. And so I look forward to that. But I also welcome your call anytime. And thanks for the kind words earlier about the gig here and my father. It was really appreciated.
Well, thanks for giving me the microphone for an extended period. I hope your listeners found it worthwhile.
Your seniority demanded it.
Okay.
Thanks again, Ches. Take care.
Thank you.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Right now, line one, David Baldwin, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi.
I talked to you about a week ago about a few things happening in the Rope Walk Lane area.
Yes, sir. Recall it well.
So I just want to... No, I'm not the crime reporter for this area. I certainly don't want to be.
I don't know, but you've been holding it well, but go ahead.
I'd like to thank the police and the first aid responders and the security people. And I just ask people if they're aware of what is reported, what is real, and what's happening out there. And I thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, David, it's an interesting... Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So the Shell gas station, the front window got smashed down on 3 o'clock in the morning last week. The outpatient's bathroom in St. Clair's got destroyed on Sunday night, I think it was. And now, I don't have 100% on that because it's just too bizarre, but I will say it anyway, that there was someone going around in a car with a full-size sex doll coming out of the sunroof. There was a store on Bering Meeting Road, and the clerk there was trying to prevent a robbery, got stabbed. Car window got smashed out on Oxon Pond Road last week. A guy was stealing from cars on Silva Street. And now we have a pooper scooper bandit in our area who's after stealing the pooper scooper. So I'll have to say what's really positive is that I went around Monday Pond Trail and there was no garbage. In fact, I'm almost saying that this is probably one of the cleanest trails around. So whoever is responsible for that, thank you. So between people can't afford things with the rent and the housing, they can't afford their groceries, and they can't afford their heat bill. We have a pressure cooker going around here like you wouldn't believe, and we all stand by and look at it and just can't believe it. But I'm telling you, when you go to sleep at night or when you're home watching TV, there's stuff happening. And it doesn't have to happen at night either. It happens 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's true.
So I don't have any answers, but I'm telling you, it is. I'm almost ready to call it the rope walk lane cartel up there now. I'm almost at that stage.
Well, I mean, I don't need to tell you about the shooting at that Burger King, which is now closed there a little while ago, and some attempted murder charges laid there by people who already had some pretty lengthy court docket stuff going on. And David, look, I just want to thank you for keeping it in the public consciousness. And not that, I mean, I know we sort of see glances of it. You've obviously been exposed to much more than the average person or is willing to talk about, much more than the average person is willing to talk about. But it needs to be. And some people said, oh, it's fear-mongering, and why is he all this negative stuff? No, it's real, it's important, and it should be on our minds and top of mind, because the unpredictability and the dangers out there, crime has changed. The RNC say it, the RCMP say it. For a long time, it was hard for them to admit that things were getting worse because there might be a perception or a suggestion that they weren't doing their jobs, whereas unfortunately, for the most part, police are reactive. I mean, there are proactive, programs and all that sort of thing that they do have. But I mean, for the most part, they're responding to calls. They're not there before it happens. So, look, I just want to thank you for that much, at the very least, when you joked off the top about being the crime reporter. It's important because we get emails on a regular basis or phone calls lambasting us for, a newsroom, and all newsrooms get it, for how come you don't have this story and how come you don't have that story? Well, I mean, we can't be there 24/7 either. We're not there before it happens. And a lot of times we rely on the police for their overnight reports, and if it's not included in it, the only way we might find out if it was so egregious and so serious that there is an actual news release on this specific incident, say, i.e. a murder, a manslaughter, or something that just is a major headline that the RNC have to bring the public's awareness to.
Yeah, and I know that it's probably happening over in the East End, and I know it's happening in the West End, and, I look at what's happening in Toronto, and they're dealing with home invasions, so I hope that never happens. But I just want to say, and I wish people were cognizant about what's happening around them. And you're not in Disney World anymore, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and as you said, it's happening in all corners of the province, and it just needs to be on the consciousness. I just thanks for the call. I was just going to say, don't be a stranger. I just hope you don't always have to have a reason to call for those, for all the negativity that goes on. You mentioned home invasions. Thankfully, as you just said, there were, I think, 2 really high-profile ones in the last, say, 5 or 6 years. One, of course, involving an elderly couple in the East End who many know very well. But the randomness is when that, as I mentioned, the news release from the RNC, that's when the more serious, offences get more publicity, such as a random home invasion. As you said, the home invasions are one thing. A lot of times they'll say people were known to each other. When they're not known to each other, that's when it gets people really nervous, because that could be you, could be me. It doesn't matter where you're living, anywhere in the city. Desperation is real, and if they see an opportunity, they're going to take it.
Yeah, but there's hope. I mean, whoever's taking care of that Monday Pond Trail, man, oh man, I'm telling you, it was absolutely heartwarming to see. Just great. Yep. Great job. Whoever's doing it, whoever's responsible, hats off. Perfect.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Go right to line number 2. And Barry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
Anytime, Barry. Still with the fallout from the food fishery announcement last week, I'm wondering, is there any rest for the weary? Do you ever take a break?
No, we were only a third done.
There you go. More power to you. Go for it.
Indeed. So we understand the frustration of the food fishers on the south and west coast, and we want them to know that the food fishery fighters are still in the fight, and we want, to ensure that they have the same boat. They're in the same boat as we are. We think that the feds failed to do proper analysis and thinking on this issue, and we wonder if it's a divide and conquer strategy. And if it is, it's not going to work. With the south coast and the west coast together, they both experience a lot of windy conditions. And that reduces the amount of time that they can get out, and especially on the weekends. So with the South Coast, they had a commercial halibut fishery, and we've learned that the DFO has shut down the commercial halibut fishery because they were catching too many codfish.
Yes, as was mentioned yesterday, coming up in the bycatch even. Indeed.
So what's it that? And along with the West Coast, well, just across the straits is New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, and they have a 4, 5, or 6 week retention on codfish of 5 fish a day. And so if they can keep codfish 4, 5, or 6 weeks, 7 days a week, what's on the go with the West Coast? They got the same fishing the same fish. With the significant loss of time in both areas, both coasts, they should have daily fishing. And fishers that we've heard from say that it's not so much about the fish, it's more about the safe fishing conditions, safe weather conditions. And that's something that Merv was talking about, the safe weather conditions. And indeed, DFO and the Minister herself talked about the safe weather conditions. Mm-hmm. Another suggestion about the South and West Coast is that if DFO is not going to grant them the full week like we have here on the Northeast Coast, why not consider adding a couple of extra days to the fishing week to account for the lost weather? And if there is lost time in fishing, which they have indicated there is, well, what kind of impact is the hook and line fishery going to be doing to the cod stocks there? We also, Brian, have secured a meeting with the Provincial Fisheries Minister, Loyola O'Driscoll, next Tuesday coming. And we're going to be looking for his support and the provincial government support in this food fishery battle that we're in. And Premier Tony Wakeham made a post on Facebook congratulating Minister O'Driscoll and another MHA in what I felt they were saying is that they were taking credit for the food fishery extension.
Right.
And we're also going to be sending a letter to the Federal Minister DFO, Joanne Thompson, for another meeting and to express our concerns about the South and West Coast.
So I think that,
as well as, yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's a bit of news that you have that meeting next week. Now, not that it's with the federal minister, but at least the provincial minister. And I want to be clear. There was a post you said they were sort of taking credit for the latest changes.
Premier Wakeham made a post congratulating Minister O'Driscoll and another MHA, I can't remember who it is now, and the feeling that I got is that it was them who looked after, who got the deal done for the food fishery here on the Northeast Coast.
Is that your understanding? Did they deserve that credit?
No. and because why do I say no? Because we've been sending letters after emails to the provincial government, seeking their assistance, seeking their help, seeking their support for the food fishery all along, and receiving not very much in reply. And I'm not looking for a pat on the back, Brian. Everybody knows that.
No.
Give credit where credit is due.
Yep.
And I'm not looking for Premier Wakeham to thank me, but it just seemed like it sounded like, and a lot of people said the same thing. It sounded like they did the whole thing themselves.
Yeah. So what do you expect to come of this next week?
Well, we hope that the Provincial Minister of Fisheries, Lowell Driscoll, will pledge his support behind us and try to get a meeting with Minister Joanne Thompson and have us in attendance with it. That's not too much to ask.
Yeah, there's been so much that's put in. It seems. Do you really? How optimistic are you that anything beyond what's been done for this year can be done anything sooner? Certainly not for this year, but I guess you're turning your attention to further changes next year, trying to get a little bit more, squeeze a little bit more out of the feds, or what's the thought?
I'm not even thinking about next year yet, Brian. We have approximately 35 days before the food fishery opens here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I think that's more than enough time for Minister Thompson to add a couple of extra days to the food fishery, or to make the change to the full week fishery for the South and West Coast. And the example I will use is last year, toward the end of the summer, when Minister Thompson introduced 2 extra weekends because of the wildfires, and that was an overnight decision. And why can't this be an overnight decision?
Oh, agreed. Precedent was set.
Right.
Yeah, the precedent was set there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only right. And plus, Brian, we're planning a Solidarity Day at DFO in the White House to show support, unity, and solidarity for the food fishers of the South and West Coast. We want to say that we're not done. We're still fighting for you, and just stay with us, and we hope that we can do it. If we can't, then we'll look at next year, I guess.
Do you have a time and date for that event at DFO?
No, not yet, but don't we worry. We will plan that and announce that within good time.
Okay, very good. Well, Barry, and of course, obviously, after the meeting with the provincial minister next week, if you can give us a shout back and let us know how that went, we'd really appreciate that as well, because I can tell you, not many topics am I getting more emails on than this issue right now, so just so you know.
Thank you very much for saying that, Brian. And it is a hot issue, and a lot of people that are concerned about it, and rightfully so, because it's more than a privilege. It's maybe not the right, but it's more than a privilege, and it's something that we grew up with. It's our culture. Yeah. It's our culture. Family traditions. To introduce the young folks about it and everything else. And with the moratorium after having out, there's a lot of information, generational culture that's been lost with the kids, and we feel that that's not right, and that needs to be made up. And with the solidarity now, it's going to be, of course, peaceful.
Yep, and I don't think it's too much over the top to say most people consider it a birthright for all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to grab a few fish and, rules are rules, but, keep fighting the good fight, Barry. I really appreciate the call.
Thank you for saying that, Brian, and as always, it's been a pleasure.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Well, let's go right to line number 3, and Craig, you're on the air.
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Grand, sir. How are you? Where are you on the road today?
Yeah, I'm just pulling over here at Norris Arm here now. Make my way in the city to make some deliveries and stuff.
Okay, great. Easy on the highway. Take it easy.
Yeah.
And I should say everyone else take it easy on the highway.
Yes. Net metering. I mean, we have approximately 250,000 household units here in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
If each one of them put a solar system, $25,000, it's approximately $5 billion. So that would basically offset the current power usage that we're using now. And let's just make sure that all Newfoundland Labradorians know that we don't need any more power. All of this power that's going to be generated is for industry and commercialization. It's not for residential and industrial use on the island now, because we're only using a quarter of the power that's being generated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're just for people who don't know, like the net metering option. That's the option to generate your own electricity from whatever source you may get it, whether it's a wind or solar or your own makeup of whatever it is off grid. But it's up to 100, I think, kilowatts, and it's just like as a backup. To offset your own use, you'd still have connection to the grid. When you need more. So is that a fair summarization?
Yes. Currently here in Newfoundland, it's all different across the country and the state. Some utilities will actually pay you money for the power that you generate and put back onto the grid.
Back into the grid, yeah.
Here in Newfoundland, they're only, as far as I know, they're only giving credit. So you can build up credit throughout the summer, and then throughout the winter, you could be using up that credit. So your power bills don't go up. They're basically staying even throughout the year. You can even pay nothing, because if you're generating so much power from your system, you're not utilizing what's being generated, so you have credits.
Yeah, and it makes eminent sense if you have the sort of upfront to be able to establish that extra, say, small-scale renewable source on your property. But a lot of people aren't really aware of it. They're probably not in the situation to be aware of it or to have the option, especially if you're in a more urban area as opposed to rural.
Yes. We've fought for years to get it, so we finally got it, but there was not a big uptake. I don't know if there's 1,000 people in Newfoundland that's even on it right now.
It'd be interesting, yeah.
We just put out grants for a $3,000 heat pump, $22,000 to install it. So people are getting a $3,000 heat pump, putting it into their house, and now us taxpayers are paying $22,000 to have that unit in your house. So when the power goes, that unit is useless. You're not going to heat your home. But if you had net metering and you had that backup, you can have your power. You're secure. And if we wanted to, because sodium-ion batteries now, that's the big thing that's coming. These lithium batteries, they're going to go to the wayside. Sodium-ion is coming up. So we could have batteries like you have, like the Tesla wall power pack in your house. So really, you generate power, you put it into the battery, you're taking power from that battery to run your house, so you're not using any power. We got to think what we're doing here in Newfoundland. We have a great opportunity before us, and what are we going to do? We're going to wait to make a deal with Quebec, and then the federal government's going to come by and say, well, we can offer you this. We cannot wait for a deal, and you can't wait. We can't have a referendum until the people decide we got a deal. We're waiting for a counteroffer. And when we get that counteroffer, that's got to be brought to the people and say, okay, this is what's being offered. Do we want to go forward with that deal or not? And if it's a good deal, yes, go ahead with it. But if it's not, obviously, we shouldn't. We should keep all the power for ourselves. If Quebec wants it so bad, we can sell it to them. We can do an upfront package deal, power purchase deal, that could last for years, and we can get billions of dollars up front, and that will help us develop the rest of the project. We got to look at different ways of doing things here, because we keep doing the same thing, and the Newfoundland people are suffering because of it.
Yeah, I think the outside the box and forward thinking is part of. I think the provincial government would argue that's what they're doing with this reset on the MOU, and the devil will be in the details. But it speaks to the importance, your larger issue, of the rare earth and critical mineral mining, which we need the power for in Labrador. It's kind of like the catch-22. We need it, but we need that. And in order to get at the rare earth minerals in different jurisdictions, but we have that potential there when you're talking about lithium and the ion and the battery options to be able to power your own source of power. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we just heard Quebec is opening up the largest graphite mines in Canada. The largest graphite mines before that was in Ontario, 50 million metric tons. Here on the Bay River Peninsula, we potentially have 100 million metric ton deposit of graphite. Obviously, we need to do some drilling and improve the reserve, but that potential that's in that deposit is hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars into the marketplace. The batteries that are being used in electric vehicles now, over 50% of it is graphite and graphene. So we could be producing our own batteries here in Newfoundland. See, that's the thing. We don't have what's called a based resource economy. We're not looking at the resources that we got and putting a value on it and saying, okay, the gold is here, let's get that up. The value is there now. We need that out of the ground today so that we can actually get value for it to develop these other projects going forward. If we're going to keep going to the IMF or whatever to get loans and this and that, what are we doing? We're just putting ourselves further in the hole. We got all the value that we need in the ground now. We just got to take it out in a way. And that's another question. If you get to ask the Premier, what royalties are the mining industries getting here?
Yeah,
because if I have a property and I got a mining company that comes in on it, I'm getting 2 to 3%. Now, what is the province getting from that?
Yeah, and you mentioned, I'll tell you, I'm right at the news. I got to get going, Craig. I hope you'll call again. But you mentioned right out of the box there, you mentioned gold. Central Newfoundland is on bust right now. It is flying. And it'll be interesting to know what kind of royalties we are reaping from the gold, especially since the value has just gone through the roof, of course. The value of gold right now, it's... still up around $1,000 an ounce or something. I got to check it again. I haven't looked in a long time. But I remember back in the day when it was, $100, $150 an ounce when I was doing an old business report for the Telegram years ago, and now look at it. So, point taken. Base mineral resort. Base mineral Northwood. Did we lose? Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. Craig, go ahead. Yeah, I'll let you finish.
Oh, yeah, no, I just got cut off and missed the
sorry
last
about
thing.
that.
But, yes, I mean, we have a lot of stuff that needs to be done here, so hopefully we can get something organized and figure out our future. What is it that Newfoundlanders actually want? Because, we got the tourism side of things, we got the mining, and we got the power side of things. So we can go many different directions, but it's up to the Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to actually decide how we want to go forward.
Agreed. We need
because right now it's the industry that's driving us.
Yep, and you're right. We want it all, but we can only do it in phases and what we're capable, what we have the capacity to do. And yeah, so look, all the broad view that you're providing is it's worth the mulling over, shall we say, of the powers that be to decide how we're going to go about it, how much we actually have say in this as the public and as the residents. Well, referendums are good, but, where they're going with it and the priorities, as you said, the previous Liberal government and the current government sees all the opportunities, whether it's the mining on the province or Labrador, then the hydro and Beta Nord. By rights, we should be flying right now. It's all in our backyard, and I completely agree.
Yeah. We got the opportunity just before us. The big boys club that we have here, let's make some right decisions for the people in Newfoundland this time, because, we're only going to suffer going forward because things are getting worse. They're not getting better. And it's up to us to be an example to the world of what 500,000 people can do with all of its resources and provide a benefit for its future children, not suffering and pain that we currently have in today's society.
Yeah, we got to do it right, and I give the Wacom government credit for, digging a little deeper and acknowledging that a lot has changed in the past year and a half and resetting and making sure that we do this right. Hopefully the right people are in place. Hopefully the politics and all the other stuff, the noise along the side can be worked out and communication can be better and we can move on. Craig, thanks very much for the call.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
We have a caller, and that's Barry, and he's on the MOU. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
Yeah, my thoughts right now have to do with we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on some of the discussion that's going on. If you think over the last 50 years, if you talked about Churchill Falls, the problem was always we got a bad deal. Quebec got 95% of the benefits, and we only got 5%. And I think we should need to come back up to that before we start talking about development of the Gull Island and all that sort of thing. The original MOU said they would tear up the existing agreement. And so that's a good start right there. The work that's been done by people like Dave Vardy and Dr. Doug May, which is where I'm sort of getting most of my information.
Sure.
Says that Churchill Falls now is generating enough electricity that at 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is roughly what we pay a little more than that here in Newfoundland, every year in 2026, $5 billion worth of electricity has been produced every year. $5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
The cost of producing it now is down to about 0.5 cent. a kilowatt hour. In other words, that $5 billion is, I don't want, profit is the right word, but that's the net earnings of Churchill Falls. And right now,
at that price,
most of it is going to Quebec. So if we were able to get half of that now, not in the future, not have it back end loaded, as somebody mentioned this morning, we would have $2.5 billion, and we would have a surplus in the Newfoundland Treasury. I'm not talking about what Newfoundland Hydro gets or Quebec Hydro, what the government of Newfoundland gets in revenue. So out of that $5 billion in, let's call it profit, because it's clear money, clean money. How is that going to get divided up? And if we only got half of it, and I think that would be, for starters anyway, maybe in 10 or 20 years we could put it up to 60 or 70%. But right now, if we could get half of the profit that Churchill Falls is generating, we would have a surplus in the Newfoundland Treasury.
How do you propose that are you talking about opening a separate negotiation beyond the actual contract that we're trying to renegotiate?
Well, this is the thing where I was saying we're getting ahead of ourselves. It seems to me that there is a necessity for Newfoundland as a province to talk to Quebec as a province and have our public servants negotiate what the laws of Newfoundland will be with respect to how we collect money from that source of wealth. Now, let's get that done, and then, and only then, should we develop anything with respect to the Gull Island. We don't need Gull Island, as a number of people this morning have said.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, it could be developed without. I mean, adding that extra layer was the attempt and acknowledgement of the need, of the coming need, of the future need. And it would seem to make eminent sense if you're going to have those two partners, that once you have those two partners and you get them at the table and they're negotiating and they can hammer out an MOU, even if not everybody is on board with it, then that's when that brings in that larger picture. But I know I see what you're saying, and I haven't heard the argument yet to take smaller bites, if you will, before we get into the in-depthness of the renegotiating of the entire contract, if I'm reading you correctly.
No, that's what I said. They got it. Yeah. I was going to say something bad backwards.
That's not that bad. Yep. Ass backwards, yeah.
Ass backwards, yes. Yeah. Okay. Because I think we should get the big thing dealt with first. That is, we have, right now, in 2026, there is going to be, at the current rate of electricity in Newfoundland, $5 billion worth of wealth being generated. Who gets it? In 2026, who gets it? Not next year, not 20 years' time, not in 2085. Who gets that $5 billion? The answer is Quebec gets
to a large, yeah.
Right? I think it's over 90%, or maybe it's 89%, somewhere around, something in that area. So I think our starting point should be, at least and we can give them, we'll let you have 50%, but we want 50% going into the Newfoundland Treasury.
Yeah, and then this gets into the tweak.
Settle that decision first, and that's a province to province. Public servants be talking to public servants, working that deal. And Quebec Hydro, Newfoundland Power, Light and Power, Fortis, they stay outside because this is a province-to-province arrangement.
Not yet. And the question would be...
I'm just saying that should be Premier Wakeham's starting point.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough starting point because, again, you point out the percentages, and I'm not sure myself. I've seen a percentage. 90 sounds right. I just don't. I'll take your word for it. I don't have it right at my fingertips.
Well, it's not my word. It's Dr. Doug May's word and David Barty's words. They've done the math on it.
Yeah,
they've done a great service to the province.
Sure.
By the tremendous amount of work that they've done, and I'm just feeding off of it. That's all.
Yep. No, I understand. I just wonder how warm Quebec would be to such a scenario. Anything that takes money.
Here's why they might be. Because until we get an agreement on that, nothing happens at Gull Island, and they want Gull Island. So that's the bargaining chip.
Yeah, it's another route into it. I mean, it creates another. Do you think that creates more animosity or more? I know you're saying province to province, but that's almost like a little bit holding over the barrel. Well, I don't want to. I can't find the right term for it right now. But is it a leverage thing that they may take offense to, and is there any way to negotiate around it?
Brian, I used to be involved with negotiations, and that's exactly what you do. You say, we're going to negotiate, and if you don't give us what we want, we're going on strike. That's what negotiations do, get hot and heavy in the middle of the negotiations. It isn't all nicey stuff.
Oh, no. It's definitely not. It may be at the table, but...
Let's negotiate. we have power, potential power in Gull Island that Quebec wants. And we can promise them that we'll get the power. They'll be able to, along with Newfoundland Hydro, and reach a deal where Gull Island will be the cheapest source of new power for them. And if you do the work on the math, you can see that that's possible. Nothing in the area can beat Gull Island when it comes to a source of power at a cheap rate. If you look at small-scale hydro, there's very little hydro left in Quebec. There's small modular reactors, there's wind, and there's solar. All of these have problems that Gull Island beats them in terms of being the cheapest source. So the cheapest source of electricity for the industry and people of Quebec is Gull Island, and we can reach a deal on that. But before you can get a deal on that, we want our fair share of what's being generated now in Churchill Falls.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure if it was addressed directly. I've gone through the expert panel report. Look, these are the kind of discussions and ideas that no one is going to shouldn't turn their nose up at. Again, as you said, with your experience in negotiating, and no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not all nicey. In the end, what you put forth in public could be absolutely nothing about what's going on behind closed doors. We know that, and that's through lack of transparency, but for commercially sensitive reasons sometimes. I love the thought.
I think that you raise a good point there. I think that the importance of transparency is important because it was because the MOU, the original MOU, was made public, i.e., we had transparency, that people like Doug May and Dave Vardy, they were able to look at it and analyze it with their backgrounds in economics, right? So
because they had access and they could look at it.
Exposing the facts is good for Newfoundland, and anyone who wants to keep things secret is doing us all a disservice. And I think I heard Premier Wakeman shortly after he was elected saying that one of his guiding principles in governing for the next 4 years was going to be transparency. I don't know if I can quote him exactly, but I'm pretty sure he said something along those lines.
He's not said it just once. He said it repeatedly. This was they talked about the three pillars, but that was the fourth, if you will. When they're talking about healthcare and affordable living and safer communities, transparency and openness. It was overly over and over and over, which is why it's so frustrating and a little bit galling. And the fact that we haven't heard from the Premier or a better explanation on the expert panel's no-show, gets under people's look. People say, "Oh, will you give up with that because it doesn't have anything to do with the agreements?" Well, it does, because we're going to be voting on it if it comes to a referendum.
Yeah, we have to be careful we don't get distracted by that kind of discussion and use up our time discussing that, which is not insignificant. But right now, the question is, we've got $5 billion there this year. How do we divvy it up?
How do you? Yep. No, I understand. That's a great question. And if the Premier has some time to give us a shout, obviously not today. We got a half hour left. You never know. I live in hope. That'd be another fantastic question and potential proposal to put before him, or idea. We can use all of them. I've said before we could use all the ideas from previous premiers, even, rather than just throwing that out with the bathwater and saying no, it's politics. But that's just my bee in my bonnet today. Barry, look, I'm a bit past the break, but you go right ahead. Just sum up.
it points out the role that you and Patty before you have in this debate, because the question of what kind of questions you ask the Premier or the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Fisheries or whoever, you're often going to be the spokesman for us. So don't want to put too big a load on your shoulders, but you bear a tremendous responsibility to be our questioners.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not lost on me, Barry, at all.
Okay. Anyway, good luck with that.
Yeah, thanks for that one. I won't carry that one around for the rest of the afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
It is a big day in Harbour Grace as the town welcomes Amelia Earhart in statue form, of course, back to its rightful place after the, well, nothing short of, just dastardous deed that somebody stole it, cut it up, and apparently wanted to try to sell it for this, that, and the other thing. But no, the community rallied. We found it. That's another story. But Morgan McDonald went to work, and lo and behold, today is the big day. Pam Parsons, the MHA for the area, is on site. How are you?
Hi, Brian. How are you? It's a very exciting day here out in Harbour Grace, as you said. We just literally unveiled the new and improved, I guess, Amelia Earhart statue and returned her to her rightful place here just by the Spirit of Harbour Grace plain and, of course, adjacent to the Kyle here in historic Harbour Grace. So I'm actually here at the site now. There's a lot of people here gathered for this very special occasion, and we just also finished up a lovely ceremony at St. Francis School put off by the town, the school. The members of the Pike family are here who contributed a lot to aviation, that actually donated the big plane here in Harbour Grace. So, it's a real happy community event here today. We also had an ambassador from Ireland because, as we know, Amelia took off from our historic airstrip here in Harbour Grace and landed in Derry, Ireland. So, lots of great history being celebrated here today.
She has come a long way, and what a great, effort there was to have this taken care of and replaced and back the way it should be before this, this horrific, I'm going to call it horrific, because just when you look at the pieces lying on the ground, the old photos, it's it just boggles the mind, the things that people do, whether it's for a bit of money or whatever, and the crime that goes on. But it's great. What an effort. And it's funny, Pam, I feel like I'm talking to you back in your reporter days, the on the scene report. So tell me the mood, Pam Parsons, and how many people showed up?
The mood here is just amazing. It's exciting. There's optimism. There's pride. There's civic pride. There's international pride here today. As I said, very historic for what's happening. How Harbour Grace is on the map also now for its aviation, and to be celebrated by and helped by Amelia Earhart. To put us on that map with aviation history. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention she's a pioneer and she's a woman. She was a first and a very important woman, a statue of a woman here, and it also coincides with, of course, as we know, the 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote just last year here in Newfoundland on the island portion of the province. So there's a lot of happiness here today. It was a sad event, a disappointing event about a year ago when we lost the statue, when we know it was taken, in the wee hours in the morning in darkness. But that said, it allowed for this event. Community came together like no other. The town, volunteer groups, the Pike family, myself as government. Everybody came together to help to restore this and to get this back. And I will say, I certainly encourage you, Brian, invite you to come make the trip out here to historic Harbour Grace. She's launched here now. And she's there on a nice platform, a good sturdy platform, and please God, we don't have to ever contend with losing her ever again, because as I said, the people here in Harbour Grace are very proud of this, and rightfully so. And
lots of good security cameras on that area, I hope. Not to joke about it even, but it's sad that we have to do that. And now you have the trifecta there, as you said. The Spirit is there, the Spirit of the Harbour Grace, the Kyle, and Amelia Earhart, all within shadows of each other, and I love that drive. As a kid, we used to drive all the way down, right up through cabin up around Macklinson's. We'd come all the way through on Sunday and Saturday, all the way down through the old railway there and up through, and anyway, Spaniards Bay. And I love the drive, and any opportunity, the next chance, I want to see it in person. I want to go down and have a look at it and get my own little photo of it. I'm sure we'll see lots on socials. Pam, I know you're not the municipal rep there, and you're the MHA for the area in the provincial government, in the House of Assembly. But, speaking of heritage, that 188-year-old heritage structure, the Ridley office, that's a real crying shame. Now, I've seen, the reports on it, and this building was demolished. A lot of people up in arms about it, but this isn't something new. These buildings that are privately owned, when they fall into disrepair, if the owner doesn't look after them and they make an application and it's not already a heritage structure and no one else can take on the expense of it, it can get lost. And that building was demolished. A lot of people upset about it. What are your thoughts?
People are certainly upset about it, and I was certainly made aware of it just literally it was happening the day of or just the day prior. And people, of course, were sad and disappointed to see this go. I mean, as I mentioned, there's so much history here. But unfortunately, we're seeing this not just here in Harbour Grace, but in different places in St. John's and, across our province. Unfortunately, these things take upkeep and they take money. And every level of government we can all appreciate, whether it's municipal, provincial, and even federal, it takes money to do these things. But that said, it takes people, it takes dedication. So it is certainly sad to see it go. I can't speak to the details of how that came to be because I'm simply not privy to that. I'm not aware of it. As you mentioned, it's a private ownership. But that said, it is always sad to see something crumble or something, with historic value be lost. But that said, maybe, more people can get involved. More people can, because it takes a lot of volunteers to make things happen, as you know. But without our volunteers, there's so many things that would not happen. But then again, hats off to our volunteers for all that they do. But it certainly takes a collective effort, to preserve our history. And just exactly what happened here with Amelia. I mean, people came together, to bring this back, and all hands on deck. And that's what we need to celebrate and to preserve our beautiful history here throughout the entire province.
Yeah, and people have to know about it, and of course, the Amelia Earhart situation is well publicized. But some people, I guess, would just say it just quietly happened, even though it was before council for some time. So, yeah, and I appreciate it's not your neck of the woods, as far as so to speak. But they are going to use.
That said, Brian, anything that we can do is working together. Like, I often say, we get the best results when we work together. And often, projects takes all levels of government, as well as organizations from community and even business, private business, of working together. When we collaborate, that's when we see the magic happening. So let this be a call to everybody to get involved. I mean, step up if you have passion in preserving history, becoming part of, helping heritage and whatnot. There's always room for volunteers. And again, a heartfelt thanks to every volunteer out there, because without volunteers, I tell you, it'd be a different story all around. So they're very valued and they're needed.
Can't say enough about volunteers. Just as a footnote on that, on the Ridley office, apparently they will probably use some of the stone, the original stone in that building, in a future construction in the town. So they'll at least be able to preserve some of that physical history. Pam, before I let you go, obviously, just a quick question on the MOU, your thoughts, and the pretty strong and stiff criticism of your former government, of the government under Andrew Furey and then John Hogan, regarding the overreach at Hydro and all those other issues. Your takeaway from the MOU released the report released yesterday on the MOU.
Well, what I would like to see, we've seen, who's now the Premier Tony Wakeham, was very bold, made a lot of promises about this while on the election campaign, what he would do. He would hold a referendum. Those are words that he put on record, to hold a referendum. There's some people think we should have a referendum. There's some people think that citizens should not be involved in a referendum. But that said, the Premier made that promise. The Premier also made the promise that the panel member, which is why the 19th of May was significant, so all the panel members could come together. But then, as we know, lo and behold, at the 11th hour, we hear that the panel members are not going to be available to the public to give a technical briefing to media. So that to me raises a lot of questions. And just to see the Premier and the Minister there yesterday taking questions and to not hear from the people who were on the panel, that's what they were paid taxpayers' dollars to do. And the same going forward with now the group that has been assumed. We have a former minister, a former PC cabinet minister of natural resources, who's now going to be in charge of this, and as well as the guy from Emira who gave us Muskrat Falls. So I think those are all questions that we need answers to. As you know, Brian, and you said earlier in your show today, many premiers of the past, of all stripes, have tried to reopen that bad deal of 1969, as we know. And I like your idea. I heard you throw it out there. Maybe the premiers of the past should all come together. Politics aside, I said this in the House of Assembly yesterday, this should not be political. This is about the past, present, and future of our province. We're in a position now where we can have great potential and to rightfully get those revenues what we deserve. Here, we have natural resources. We could be the richest jurisdiction in the world, among one of the richest. I think it's time that everybody got to come together. It's time to put politics aside. Politics has no place in this deal, in my personal opinion. But let's all work together, and let's all be transparent. We need to be transparent. And when we did bring in that MOU, when Andrew Fury did bring that with Premier Legault at the time, we brought international experts from J.P. Morgan, Power and Chase, Steichen Elliott. Those are international experts with absolutely no political gain or political roots here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So that is independent as it gets. And we have to stop calling Premier Wakeham's panel independent. It is nothing. There's no independent about that. With Chris Huskelson from Emera on that panel, we know again he gave us Muskrat Falls. He was part of that, and we're still paying for that. People, yes, people say that's of the past, but you know what? Our power bills are doubled because of the Muskrat Falls debt that we owe, and it's only because of the rate mitigation from the federal government that people are not paying double on their power rates. A lot of passion here on this topic, Brian. I know we're probably going to need more time to talk about it, but it's time for, let's remove the politics altogether. Let's be completely open and transparent. Let's call in our premiers from the past, as you suggested. This is everybody should have a stake in this game. It's our past, present, and future of Newfoundland and Labrador.
And I appreciate you picking up that issue. I think it would be very helpful for former premiers to get together, throw down the colours of the party politics, and use their experience, good or bad. Going back to my original question, I just want to know, was it appropriate for the provincial government, for your former Liberal government, to, as the report says, meddle in NL Hydro's negotiating on that contract?
That's said in the report that there was meddling, but myself as a cabinet minister, I don't recall any meddling. I certainly didn't have any involvement, or direct involvement, with dictating, how the negotiating team would operate.
No, and I didn't suggest you did, but you read.
No.
You know the point that I'm making,
from
right?
Our government. I do, and that's what the Premier is now grasping at, to say that there was overreach. I don't recall that overreach, so perhaps the Premier can bring his panelists and side by side and come out and tell us what he means exactly by that, instead of just blasting off that statement. I don't recall that any overreach with regards to what the work that was done with the negotiating team. Again, international experts were there on our behalf. Again, from J.P. Morgan, these people, again, I can't emphasize it enough, are international experts. They're not former politicians. They're not former cabinet ministers. They're not former premiers. So again, I really don't know what the Premier means by that. So he'll have to come out, and he should come out. And again, I'm calling on him. You paid these panelists with taxpayers' dollars. They were paid, whatever they were paid to do this work on behalf of the province. We brought our international experts in the House of Assembly. We'd like to do the same. The Premier promised that this would happen, but now he's backtracking and flip-flopping on what he did promise. So unfortunately, this is becoming a pattern with lack of consultation and lack of following through on what you put on record that you said you would do.
Pam Parsons, the Liberal MHA for Portagrave, Harbour Grace Portagrave. Thank you very much. Enjoy your time there with Amelia today and all the crowd. What a great day for that. And I appreciate you answering the questions.
Make that trip around the bay. Get out here and make that trip around the bay and see Amelia and all that we have to offer here in Harbour Grace Portagrave.
All over it. Can't wait. Thanks again.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Thanks to Dave Williams. Thanks to all your callers. Thanks to all the emailers. Everyone who contributed this morning. We'll be right back here in this spot tomorrow. Drive safely, everyone. Arrive alive. VOCM cares.